Hello there, good afternoon and welcome to Matchday Live on a week which has seen the Imps qualify for the playoffs, albeit in somewhat controversial style. On tonight's show, we'll be getting our head around that quite crazy game at London Road on Saturday. We'll hear from manager Michael Appleton as well as the man that scored that sensational goal against Peterborough, Anthony Scully. We'll also have the team news for you coming up in around about 15 minutes time as well. Mark Hone will join us later as well as a Charlton Athletic fan as well. Tonight's topic on Matchday Live is quite simply, who is your Lincoln City player of the season? Do leave your comments in and I'll do my best to A, put them to Gary Hutchinson and B, read them out, of course, throughout the course of this show. Delighted to say that Gary joins us this evening. And Gary, nice to see you. Let's stick with that theme then straight away before we dissect Saturday's quite unbelievable game. Your player of the season and why?
I'm going to go for George Grant because I just think he's been sensational in every position he's played. He's been creative. He's been a standing leader. He's scored goals and he's created goals. But it's a very, very narrow victory. Conor McGrandles has been superb. He'll be there or thereabouts in the official voting. I think Teo Eden is well worth a shout. Brennan Johnson with double figures for goals and assists as well. So there's so many that can be chosen from. But I do think that George Grant this season has just edged it. I think he's been excellent.
Yeah, I should say as well that I'm on directing duty tonight, so do bear with me on tonight's Matchday Live. Comments coming in thick and fast already as well. George says Grant player of the season. Richard Cross says Conor McGrandles, and James Christian Biddles, as you can see there, says George Grant. Conor McGrandles, Gary, will be a lot of people's shouts, no doubt about that, the sort of season he has. And I guess he is one of those underrated players. We've said it quite a few times on Matchday Live, haven't we? But clearly it gets to a point where an underrated player doesn't become underrated because we're all talking about him so much.
Yeah, exactly. I wrote about it today. He does the work that nobody sees, but over the last 2 or 3 months, I think everybody's seen it. He was the standout player when we were struggling, and I think that's key as well. The really good players maintain a level of performance when those around them are probably not at their best. And I thought Conor McGrandles came back from injury in sensational form. And I think fans have noticed that over the last couple of months. And I think when it comes to official voting for Player of the Year, sometimes it's the players that have finished the season stronger that will get the votes because their performances are fresh in the mind. Whereas you think at the beginning of the season, Grant, Monsmer, Anderson were all superb. But certainly Conor McGrandles has been outstanding for the last few months.
Certainly has indeed. Right, Gary, let's get to Saturday's game then against Peterborough. 3-3 it finished, as we well know. But how do you even begin to summarise a match like that?
With great difficulty, but it's what I'm here for, I guess. Look, for 65 minutes, we were utterly superb. We were far and away the best team. We played some wonderful football. We created chances. Obviously, we scored 3 goals. A couple of them crackers. Anthony Scully's third goal, which we'll come on to, was definite contender for goal of the season. Bear in mind, it was a weakened Lincoln City side. The aforementioned McGrandles and Eden both missed out. And yet we just played some sensational football. And this is a team that are going into the Championship. And the bulk of this team that we played will play for them in the Championship as well. So if this is a taster of what's to come in the playoffs, I've got no fear whatsoever. Of course, after that, with the apparent collapse, I think it was more to do with the fact, obviously, we took Liam Bridgecut off, which I think affected our pattern and our style of play. And Peterborough got the wind in their sails. They have come back in a lot of games this season, Peterborough. I was talking to one of their fans yesterday, and they've got a reputation for coming back from being a goal down, perhaps not 3 goals down, but that's sometimes the way the cookie crumbles, isn't it?
Look, we're going to talk about Anthony Scully. We're going to hear from Anthony Scully later on in the show as well, and just how good that goal was. But in the meantime, Gary, when you look at the way that Peterborough attacked towards the end of the game, I mean, obviously we're seeing the goal there. We're going to talk about the penalty very shortly as well. Was it just one of those where it was once that first goal that we just saw there went in, it was going to be their afternoon? Is that how it should have been for them or not?
No, I don't think so. I think come 98 minutes, all things being equal, it's close but no cigar. They lose 3-2 because, yes, they did attack late on. Yes, they did commit bodies forward late on. But in actual fact, they didn't have as many clear-cut chances you might think until one was gifted to them. I'm not taking anything away from them. To come back from 3-0 down under any circumstances is impressive. And over 46 games, I believe they probably are the second best team in the division, which the league table goes to show. But it was just a cruel way to end a game, which I think Lincoln City deserved to win.
Right, then let's get the thoughts of Anthony Scully then, because he was asked just about that penalty decision, and this is what he had to say.
Yeah, obviously the last kick of the game, and I could see it was coming. I could see what he was looking to do. So that's, I think everybody who's watched the video has come to the same opinion. Obviously, you can see in the video I've actually jumped out of the way because I could see what was coming. I knew he was going to look for a pen. I've tried to jump out the way, and the referees gave his decision. As I said, I think everybody's watched it back and come to the same opinion. But nothing can be done now. Just got to move on and get ready for tomorrow, really.
Yeah, Gary, at least he doesn't look too downhearted about it. I guess after the goal that he scored in the game, the performance that he put in, at least he can take positives from it.
Yeah, he doesn't look as downhearted as I did there when the camera cut back to me, Sam, because it still smarts. It was a terrible decision. But look, professional footballers can't let moments like that affect them. We've got some huge games coming up. I mean, we've got 2 games now to maintain our fitness and our performance levels. But when it comes to the playoffs, there can be no looking back and feeling sorry for ourselves. And look, I think it's also important to note that had we won that game and there was still something riding on today, we would have committed our entire first team to tonight's game. We would have had to do the same again against Wimbledon on Saturday. So in actual fact, knowing our fate a couple of games before the end of the season could turn out to be a positive in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And I was actually going to ask you about that later in the show as well. So when Mark Hone joins us, I'll put that to him as well, because there's, of course, 2 ways of looking about this. Whilst we're on the theme of Anthony Scully, Gary, if we bring the goal in and have a look at it, we have seen some quite sensational goals, both home and away this season for Lincoln City. Where does this one rank amongst them?
Right up there, without a doubt, because it got a little bit of everything. It was a nice team goal. It was well worked. There was some fantastic movement, but it also had that little bit of something special, just a skillful player can pull out of the bag. I mean, it was a wonderful finish the way he's checked back. We've seen Anthony Scully try and hit shots from 18, 20, 25 yards all season. And, they've been getting close. Some have gone a little bit far away, but he's not caught one as sweet as that all season long. He had a really good game on Saturday, and he's a player that we talk about time and again on here. Where does he fit in? But while he's scoring goals like that, it doesn't matter, does it? As long as he's on the pitch. Well,
that's it as well. And it's the variety of goals we're starting to see from Anthony Scully now. We all, I guess we almost had him down as a bit of a fox in the box towards the starting stages of the season, if you like. But we see a goal like that. We see him score headers as well. He is really, really just developing his all-round game.
Yeah, exactly. You look at the number of goals that he scored compared to the first team starts that he's had. He's very much a fringe player, and I'm sure he wouldn't take that offensively, but he is. He's on the fringes of the starting 11. He's in and out, but he's our joint leading scorer, I think now. May still be one ahead of George Grant. I've kind of lost count in their individual battle. I mean, that's a huge testament to the lad, because he's played left wing, he's played in the centre, he's had 10 minutes here, he's had 20 minutes there. He just knows how to score goals, and the trick for a canny manager is working a player like that into a functioning side of 10 other players. And I think that Michael's done that very well with him this season.
Plenty of comments coming in thick and fast. Thank you very much for those. Not least from Sam Rowe. Says Gary on the left and Sam on the right. This is strange. Yeah, we said that before the show as well. We noticed it. It's a direction thing. As I said before, I'm on directing duty. I'll be honest with you, I don't know how to switch that around. So apologies, Sam, for that. In terms of players of the season then, Gary, we've talked about George Grant, we've talked about Conor McGrandles as well. Brennan Johnson has to be a shout with the amount of goals and assists that he's put in so far this season. Big game goals, big game player as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And a full international. He's been going away off with Wales. He'll probably at Euro 2020. He's had a huge season for us. Great impact he's had at times. I think he made his first start, I believe, against Blackpool. Might have even made his first appearance against Charlton, if I remember correctly. I might be wrong. When he's on fire, he is unplayable. That's why he's rated at £10 million by Nottingham Forest. That's why he gets picked for Wales. That's why he'll be at a major international tournament this summer. I think with Brennan, you'll find over the course of the next couple of seasons, he'll gain a little bit more consistency. He has had a tendency maybe to drift out of a couple of games. If the team aren't playing well, you often see Brennan kind of drift away if he isn't getting the ball. But by and large, double figures for goals and assists. It's a phenomenal return.
Richard Godson says, I know George Grant is probably head and shoulders above everyone, but my personal favourite is Teo, who's impressed more and more as the season has progressed. The Teo story is brilliant, isn't it? Because not only have we seen a player develop in two positions, but we've seen him play excellently in both as well and improve his game throughout the course of the season and look like the real deal, to coin a cliche term.
Yeah, definitely. When he arrived, I thought he was very much a central midfielder. He made his debut against Blackpool in a game we won 1-0, and he showed so many nice touches in the middle of the park, lots of endeavour. And when I saw him play at left back, I think he was sent off there against Gillingham at home, and I had to wonder if he had in him to be a dedicated left back. I think earlier in the season at times he did get caught. I'm sure if we were to ask Mark when he comes on, I think in commentary at the Fleetwood game, he just said, Ted just looks a little bit tactically not quite aware, but he's picked it up. And he's developed and he's become a quality left back. And then when he moves back into midfield, he's got that sort of slick touch. He's really good on the ball. He's got good distribution. Personally, I like him better when he's playing alongside somebody. So whether it's the double defenders in front of the back four or two just behind the forward line, I think it takes a little bit of pressure off him and then he can really express himself. But he's a big player for the future for us.
In terms of defenders, Gary, I mean, at one stage, I guess the first 3 months or so throughout the season, Lewis Monsma was almost a shoo-in for the Player of the Season award, wasn't he? And then you look at Joe Walsh and the impact, the effect that he had around November to probably around February time. It's one of those, isn't it, where I guess if either of those players had stayed throughout the course of the season, they would be right up there for a chance of Player of the Season. I guess they probably are up there for a chance of Player of the Season.
I think your first point's right. I think were they fit all the time and were they regularly consistent, I think they would be up there. I don't think there's a shout for any of the centre-backs to oust any of the other players that we've spoken about because they've either had bad patches of form, they've had long spells out injured. There's no doubt in my mind, had Joe Walsh played a 40 to 46 game season, we'd be talking about him in the same breath. There's no doubt had Lewis Monsma not struggled with COVID and struggled with his form when he came back, we'd be doing the same. Think of all the defenders. Actually, TJ Ioma is the one who's really impressed me again. First full season in senior professional football, playing out of position. He's a centre-back playing at right-back, but I think he's been sensational. And the partnership he's formed with Lewis Monsma over the last couple of weeks as well, really impressive. Right-footed defender playing on the left side of defence. Another one that's got a big future in the game ahead of him.
Really good points indeed, Gary. I've got about a minute to go until tonight's Lincoln City team news. In the meantime, Gary, we've not even mentioned Charlton Athletic, in which it is a massive night for them at the Valley, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah, they've got to win this game. They're going to come out. They're going to attack. I think they've got an injury. Jay Semi, I think, is missing, who's a really tricky winger. But they've got some good players as well. It's going to be a really tough evening, and there is an element of anti-climax, I think, about the next two games from our point of view. But it's really important we go there and put everything into it, not just to maintain the form, I think, but also, in fairness, to Portsmouth and Oxford, because they don't want to see Charlton get a result tonight and take it to the last day.
Just trying to keep an eye on the time there as the clock is just about to strike 6 o'clock, which means one thing and one thing only. We can get tonight's Michael Appleton, Lincoln City starting 11 to face Charlton Athletic at the Valley. Yeah, and here it is. Michael Appleton making a few changes from that draw against Peterborough on Saturday. The team in full is Alex Palmer, Regan Poole, TJ Omer, Lewis Monsma and Cohen Bramall. George Grant is back as captain this evening. No Liam Bridcut, either in the starting 11 or the squad as a whole. He's given a rest this evening. It is then James Jones and Teo Eden, Anthony Scully, Harry Anderson and Callum Morton. The substitutes bench reads as Long, Sanders, Hopper, Walsh, Howarth, McGrandles and Rogers. Well, Gary Michael said that he'd be making a few changes and he stuck to his word.
Yes, he did. I did speak to Liam Bridcott earlier today, and there was no indication whatsoever that his omission is anything other than to do with a rest. So that would be a worry under normal circumstances. But I think, as we know, we're now preparing for 2 games in the middle of May rather than the game that we're actually facing. However, Scully and Anderson were superb against Peterborough. And if they're the fringe players coming in, it's another great chance for them to stake a claim. You know, Teo Eden in midfield, I said I like him alongside another midfielder. Him and James Jones are looking at pulling probably some of the creative attacking strings in the middle of the park. And the back 4 is the same back 4 that started against Peterborough. So it's a strong Lincoln City side.
Certainly is indeed. Delighted to say that Mark Holmes joins us now to offer his punditry services. Mark, lovely to see you. You're up in your punditry, I mentioned that. I'm on directing duty tonight, so do bear with. We've only just had a chance to see the team, Mark. What do you make of it?
Probably a little bit stronger than I thought it was going to be. I have to be honest. I thought maybe some of the fringe players might have got more minutes in their legs, but I think Gary's hit the nail on the head. Really, I think it's momentum. I think Michael probably doesn't want the momentum to drop. They've been on a really good run. They're in form. Obviously, you've spoken about the penalty decision. I really don't want to get myself in trouble, so I won't talk about that. But it's a really strong lineup. And like I say, it's just momentum. It's just trying to get performances, momentum, making sure they go in with a good run of form into the 2 huge games, whoever they might face. So, I fair play to him as well. And like you said as well, Sam, I think, you've got to do justice to the league and to Portsmouth and Oxford. You don't really want to put out a reserve side and get thumped 3-0 because, Portsmouth and Oxford might ask questions as to why you're doing that. So I think all round, I think he's gone strong, and I think that's really good for tonight.
Yeah, I want to put Gary Hutchinson's point that he raised just before we had a look at tonight's team news, Mark, to you with regards to momentum. I know you just mentioned it there, but actually, is it a better thing? I know it was so frustrating on Saturday, the manner in which it happened, the fact that it happened to, in one sense, local rivals as well. But actually, is it a case of knowing we're in the playoffs, knowing we've got that time to prepare, knowing that Michael can rest the team? Actually, is that a good thing? Could that be a good thing overall?
I think so. Yeah, I think resting certain players. Obviously, Bridcott, he's obviously protecting Liam. There's no other way. Otherwise, he would be playing. If it was any kind of injury doubts or any kind of fitness doubts, he's just going to pull him aside and just say, look, just be around the squad, but I'm not going to play you in maybe the next 2 games. I want you fit and ready for the first leg when whoever that's against. So, I just think, momentum, winning mentality, not losing football matches. I know it felt like a loss, on Saturday, but bearing in mind, Peterborough were probably the second best team in the league over the course of the season and deservedly probably have gone up. The way it's happened is, I'm not going to say too much, but so they've been unbeaten, in good form, unbeaten, and that's what they will continue to try and do. So I think with an away game tonight, you don't really want to get beat. You want to go into that that first leg. If it's an away game, you want to make sure that you're quite good away from home, which Lincoln are really good away from home. So. I'm sure that'll come up a bit later in the conversations. Would you want the home leg first or the away leg second? I don't know how that would pan out with all the permutations. But no, it's I just don't think they just can't get beat tonight. I think that's the main thing that Michael Appleton was saying to his players: just don't get beat tonight. If you come away with a 0-0, a 1-1, job done as far as I'm concerned. Because we'll go on to the Wimbledon game, and then we'll see who's fit and available, and let's see what the squad's about for that.
Just with regards to your point in terms of home and away legs, Mark, I'm sure Gary will correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe 3rd and 4th place would get the second leg would be at home on that, right? I'm just going to look at the screen and see Gary's nodding, so I'll take that as a yes.
Yeah. I read that this afternoon.
In terms of the team news, I'm going to put this to Gary, actually, Mark. A big night for James Jones. Started the season so well. He's been a consistent performer as well, Gary. From a positional point of view, what are you expecting from him tonight alongside Teo and George?
I would imagine him playing the advanced midfield role, whether Michael goes with the two kind of holding midfielders, so to speak. I think that would be Grant and Eden with James Jones advanced. I don't expect to see him playing just in front of the back four. I think with James Jones, as you said, it is a big night for him. We keep saying that, but he's a player who has an awful lot of talent. He was very, very impressive in the first couple of months of the season, but then obviously it's believed he's one of the players that contracted COVID, and I think he's really struggled for his form since he's come back. He was very, very good against Crewe when we beat them 3-0 a couple of weeks ago, and I think another performance like that would just help ease Michael's concerns about squad depth going into the playoffs. It would be really nice to have a fully functioning James Jones as an option with those two games so close together.
Well, you mentioned the manager there, Gary. Let's get his pre-match thoughts now. He started by talking about Saturday's referee, who is John Busby. This is what Michael had to say about the incident.
No, I mean, obviously I've had a conversation with Liam, and Liam made it clear that I think he might have had a conversation with him again yesterday morning. Basically, that them apologising for the decision. So, listen, I'm not surprised. It was, I think it was one of them. It was that horrific that they couldn't do anything other than apologise. Doesn't change anything, just other than that. Yeah, it wasn't a good day for the ref. It wasn't a good day for us as a club. But yeah, we move on. You know, there's another opportunity for us coming up very, very soon, and we just have to make sure that we're in the right frame of mind and we're fully focused on that job.
And I suppose with Charlton, there is a slight concern, or maybe a good thing in a way, that you could end up coming up against them in the playoffs as well.
Yeah, I mean, you just don't know. Obviously, there's so many permutations that can happen between now and probably around about 3 o'clock on Sunday. Whoever does play for us tomorrow, you know, will be giving their all, because the reality is if I try and pick my strongest possible team available, it will give us a little bit of momentum sort of going into the players. I don't think we need that at this moment in time. I think the players are in such a good place in terms of their form and where they're at. You know, we've just played the two sides that have been promoted, and arguably been the better team. Well, we have been the better team in both games. So we've got nothing to fear going into the playoffs, other than, you know, the fact that for whatever reason in those two games we did pick up a win. But what I would say is that if we do make sufficient changes and players come in, it's going to give them a great opportunity to sort of showcase their sort of abilities and show to me that if they're required, as and when they're required, they're more than ready.
Yeah, Mike Appleton speaking to BBC Radio Lincolnshire's Rob Makepeace there. Let's start with the first point in question then, Mark. We won't go back over the decision in itself, but obviously we know that Mike Jones, head of the Referees Association, apologised to Lincoln City via Chief Executive Liam Scully. From a player's perspective, or from the next player's perspective, in your case, does it make you feel any better when you hear an apology?
No, put it bluntly. How's that going to make any difference to what actually went on with the decision, the process of the decision? You know, on the back of that, Lincoln have not managed to get a chance for an automatic promotions place, which their performance on Saturday deserved. You know, and to be taken away not by good play from Peterborough, but an absolutely horrific decision from an official. It stings. It really does sting, and I hope, you know, they can turn that energy, that anger, into some performances now to get themselves promoted in via the playoffs, which arguably might even be better if you win at Wembley. It's fantastic, isn't it? So I think the players will hopefully have got over that by now, but I hope they channel that, you know, that anger and aggression, if there is anything left, into making performances to the point where they are going to be challenging at Wembley to get promoted. And, you know, dare I say, they probably deserve through the playoffs to be promoted, I think. But, you know, a lot of things can happen. You know, so I just, as a fan of Lincoln, which I am, and I'm sure there's loads of fans watching this, are still anger and bitter about the decision. But you have to turn that into a positivity, which is very, very difficult. And I think, you know, if the fans and the players can just turn themselves into into this angry side, if you like, club that goes, right, yeah, we were unjustly done there, but let's make sure that we go forward and win the next 5 games, and get ourselves promoted so we can go back to Peterborough next year and beat them.
And you do get the point, don't you, Gary, that this particular group of players, Michael Appleton as well at the helm, will use this as fuel for motivation. They won't rest on what happened on Saturday. They won't. Already, we're hearing from the way that both Anthony and Michael have spoken after the game that it's about getting the job done now. Forget it, mark it. It's happened.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we've seen a great attitude, I think, from this team all season. There's been a no-blame culture, and that has to exist from within as well as externally. So, if they're not looking to blame individuals, for instance, when we lose games through individual mistakes, they then can't kind of turn that and blame others as well. And Michael was very pragmatic. It was a horrible, horrible decision. It stung at the time. But as I've said numerous occasions since, if that happens in October on a Tuesday night when you've played 15 games, you're not talking about it a couple of games from the end of the season. I think it was when it happened as well. It was a horrible dive. Let's not forget that allegedly the head of the Referees Association has apologised for penalties that we've been given this season to opposition as well. So it does happen and it evens itself out. I think any professional footballer these days cannot let those things get to them, though. And again, with it being a crucial point of the season, as Mark said, it's just got to be parked. Fans, players, manager, it's in the past now. We move on to tonight's game. And then when we come through into the playoffs, it'll be no more than a memory, especially not if we get to Wembley.
Yeah, we move on to tonight's game indeed. We heard from Anthony Scully earlier talking about the aforementioned penalty decision. This is what he had to say, talking all things football.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, playing in the games. I wouldn't say, from the start of games I've struggled. I just think, I don't know really. I wouldn't say I've struggled in any games from the start. I just think some games, sometimes as a wide man, you don't see as much of the ball and you can't be as influential as you want. That happens to winger. But, on Saturday I played on the left, the position that I really love and, it suits the way I like to play. So I really enjoyed it. I play differently. I have to change my game a little bit when I play on the right compared to the left. But you just adapt, if you want to play in different positions, you have to be able to adapt, and I enjoy playing both. But playing on the left, I can play a different style, and I enjoy playing that way.
And you and Cohen on Saturday, it certainly felt like you'd been playing with each other for weeks on end. The link-up play between you two seemed to be really, really good. Is that something you've worked on in training? Because we've not seen it a lot on a match day, have we? You playing off the left with Cohen behind you.
Yeah. It's not something specifically that we've worked on. Me and him, we work on things as a group, and when you get put into the role, you can pick up little bits, but a lot of it came quite naturally. Obviously, everyone knows how quick he is with his pace. So, if I get it in the pocket and I can turn, and he's gone round me, he knows that lots of times I would slide it in and we can link up. So I think it worked well with him having that pace and me being able to come in and play. But no, that was just quite a natural relationship between me and him, and I thought he done really well the weekend.
17 goals now for Anthony Scully this season, Mark. Is he a little bit unfortunate that he's not coming into the conversation for player of this season? Because, you scored 17 goals in a season where a team could potentially go up. You should normally be in the conversation.
Yeah, he's another one. I know, obviously listened to what you and Gary said earlier on in the show, and I think he's another one that's come up on the rails quite quickly. And it's probably, I wouldn't say maybe made it onto the shortlist, but certainly he's, in the second half of the season, I think he's coming to his own, and I think he's found his feet at the football club. I think he's found how Michael wants him to play. Either he fits on the left or the right or up the middle. I think he's just beginning to learn and understand what he needs to do to get himself into the team, and I think his understanding and his experience is now getting a little bit better. So I think his confidence has grown. So all the permutations you want from a young professional footballer learning his way through the game, he's beginning to get that, and you can just see he's getting better and better and better. And a fantastic goal on Saturday. The technique to try and strike that with the inside of your foot with that amount of pace, they can go horribly wrong. Trust me, I've had one or two of those. They can go horribly wrong, but to put it in the right in the top corner and give the keeper no chance. I mean, it's fantastic technique and a testament to his confidence.
My iFollow froze on the moment that Anthony Scully kicked that shot. That's the right term, isn't it? Kicked that shot. I was absolutely gutted and then delighted. Gary, I thought it was a really interesting point that he made in that press conference there with regards to his relationship with Cohen Bramall. Would you say that Cohen Bramall, and I hate this term, one of the reasons I hate this term is because I always used to get given the award for most improved player, but would you say that Cohen Bramall is Lincoln City's most improved player over the past few months or so? Because, when he first came in, it took him a while to settle. Now he looks like the real deal.
Yeah, possibly. I think both him and Regan Poole came in at quite a tough time because they were expected to drop straight into the first team. They were playing an awful lot of games Saturday, Tuesday. There was very little time to acclimatise. Now, Regan Poole had already played League One football from MK Dons, so kind of understood the pace of the division. Cohen Bramall's football had all come in League Two with Colchester. And I think not only did he therefore have to kind of get into the pace of League One football, but he also had to try and learn Lincoln City's tactics, patterns, approach. So I think it's really difficult. So actually, I'd give him a huge amount of credit for reaching the level that he's at now because he's had to learn very, very quickly. He's got pedigree behind him. He's been at Arsenal. I understand that. But I just think sometimes fans underestimate players needing time to settle at a club, into training, into a new area, a new way of life as well. So kudos for Cohen Bramall for getting up to speed as quickly as he has.
Certainly so. Right, let's have a look at what happened when the two sides met earlier on this season. It was a good day at the office at the LNER Stadium, wasn't it? Here's the best of the action. Yeah, pleased to say, as you can see, that Charlton Athletic fan Tyler Rawlinson joins us now. Tyler, lovely to see you. Thanks for joining us on tonight's Matchday Live. A massive, massive night for your side. How nervous are you?
Yeah, a little bit nervous. It's obviously a massive game. Obviously, make or break for us now. Obviously, just outside the playoffs, 4 points adrift. A defeat tonight will mean that our top six hopes are over. So it's a big, big game we need to deliver tonight. And yeah, fingers crossed we can keep it alive and get the 3 points tonight.
Presume you've had a chance to see your starting 11. A, what do you make of it? And B, what sort of side from a formation perspective are you expecting?
Yeah, I have seen it. It looks to be a 4-3-3. Jaden Stockley up top with Miller and Martson on the wing supporting him. Our midfield in particular, I'm interested in. Alex Gilby, Jake Forster-Caskey and Ben Watson, decent midfield in there. Defensive line is also very solid as well. Akin Famoa and Ryan Innes, the centre-back pairing for this game. Absolute colossal defensive line. Famoa at 6'3", Innes at 6'5". Man mountains at the defensive line. Going to be tough for you guys to break that down. It's a tough one for me though with that lineup because we're playing with the lone man with Stockley and he's a traditional target man. And what we've seen lately in the previous fixtures in particular, we just tend to smash the ball long to Stockley and essentially just hope for the best because Stockley is a massive aerial threat and you'll find it very difficult to beat him in aerial battles. But our tactics with him on the field has been a little bit off because, as I say, we just tend to smash the ball long and just pray, and it hasn't really worked. So I would like us to, I would have hoped to have seen us play either Connor Washington alongside him, as well as like someone to feed off him and play two up top. But it could work. Nigel Adkins is taking a risk with it, playing it again, but we'll see how it goes.
And as if by magic, Gary Hutchinson has produced the goods. He's got your team there for you. I don't know if he's got a question to go with it as well.
I like to ask about how certain players are doing, and one that I have a real interest in is the fullback Ben Purrington, mainly because he's a friend of one of the members of my family. I'm just really interested to know how he's performed for you this season and what the future holds for him.
Yeah, he's been fairly all right this season. On my videos on my YouTube channel, I have been fairly critical of him at his time at the club, but this season I have to give him credit. He has done fairly well. He started quite slow, and how we'd usually seen him in the Championship last year, which was quite off the pace and quite poor. But this season he's turned it around, so I have to give him fair credit to that. He has been very solid defensively. I grabbed a couple goals to his name as well this year, if I remember correctly as well. So, yeah, he's been fairly solid. In terms of his future at the club, yeah, I reckon he'd be hopefully anyway, I'm hoping he'll be a solid foundation, a solid plan for next season as well. But, yeah, been a decent season for him so far.
And Nigel Adkins has come in, Tyler. He's a great follow on Twitter for anyone that doesn't follow Nigel Adkins. Well worth doing so just for his morning videos. He's essentially an alarm, isn't he, Tyler? I don't know what he's made of his management so far, but he looks to be doing pretty well. He looks to be popular with the fans too.
Yeah, definitely. Very, very popular with the fan base. Obviously, if you've seen his Twitter videos, he's a very, very positive man, very positive mindset. And it's a breath of fresh air that we've needed at this club. Obviously, we had Lee Bowyer previously. Very unfortunate that it didn't work out and it ended the way that it did. But I think that we needed that fresh start. We needed that managerial change. And I think that Adkins is the perfect man for us. As I say, his positive mindset is brilliant for the squad, and he's really rejuvenated some of the players in the side. Alex Gilby and Dearlang Jaisimi in particular, they were kind of finding their feet under Bowyer. Very disappointing season for them both, but Adkins has come in and given them a chance and turned it around brilliantly. And I think for the future as well, it's a really, really exciting project. You know, he loves to bring through young players, academy players, which is fantastic news for us. Obviously, we've got one of the best academies in the country, and we've got some really hot prospects that are, in my opinion, ready to break into the first team. And especially this summer as well, it's going to be really interesting to see what he can do. Obviously, right now he's inherited not the best squad overall, in my opinion. Obviously, inherited a Lee Bowyer squad, which has been fairly mediocre this year. But next season, it's all about the summer for me. You know, rebuild, get to the players that he wants in, and obviously with no restrictions, no salary cap, no transfer embargo, and an owner that will back us. It's a really exciting summer, and yeah, I think Adkins is the man.
Just from a Lincoln City perspective, Tyler, you'll have obviously seen what happened at the weekend. You know, had we have won it, we'd have still been in with a shot of the automatic promotion places. The fact that a playoff place is secure for Lincoln now, do you take a bit of confidence that from a Charlton perspective, that there is just that element that tonight, albeit Michael would deny this, I suppose, that Lincoln can afford to take their foot off the gas? It gives you maybe a slight bit more of an opportunity.
Yeah, potentially. Obviously, with Lincoln's top 6 place, as you say, basically secure now, there is the element that they could potentially take their foot off the gas. Like, yeah, their season's done. This game doesn't really mean much to them at this stage. But for our perspective, we just have to go all out and go guns blazing, because it's in our hands now. It is in our hands to get top 6. We have to win this game. But yeah, there is the element that Lincoln could relax a little bit and take their foot off the gas. I've seen their lineup, and it does look very strong. Obviously, Scully, as you've spoken about in the show earlier, Lewis Monsma as well, Teo Edu and George Grant, some very, very good League One players. And so yeah, it will be tough, and I don't expect Michael Appleton to take his foot off the gas at all. I think he'll be looking to get as many points on the board as possible, and will be looking to stop us, because, as I say, from a Charlton perspective, it's in our hands, and the pressure is on us to deliver. But I'd like to hope that Lincoln would take their foot off the gas and take it a bit easy, but I don't expect that to happen at all. I think we've got a fight tonight.
Tyler, it's been great having you on. Let's finish with a score prediction this evening then.
I think I've said it for a number of months now. I think our home form has been really poor throughout this season, and I think it is what's going to let us down in our playoff push tonight. I'm going to go for 1-1 draw, which I don't think will be enough to get top 6, but it's all about next season for me. We go again next year, rebuild, and hopefully we'll be fighting for the title next year.
Tyler, many thanks for coming on tonight's Matchday Live. Just very finally, where can fans follow you on Twitter?
It's at Tyler Rowlinson02, and you can also follow me on YouTube as well. Tyler Rowlinson is on the screen. Oh, just there.
There you go. Spot on. Thanks very much, Tyler. Didn't even give him a chance to say thank you there, did I? That's the world of directing for you, I guess. Right, let's bring Gary Hutchinson and Mark Owen back into the conversation so that I can stop talking. In terms of tonight's League One fixtures then, let's have a look at them if we can, or let's at least bring the League One table in. There it is. It's, big night for Charlton, Gary, but it's also a big night for Oxford United as well.
Yes, it is, because obviously a Charlton win puts pressure on them. It's also a very big night for Blackpool. They can secure their playoff place tonight. I was chatting to Tom Main, a Blackpool fan, last night, and despite 2 wins on the bounce, they're not feeling entirely comfortable either. So that final day is really going to be interesting. I think we could go into it looking at any 3, possibly even 4, depending on tonight's results, battling for 2 places. So you would think Blackpool are safe. But a win for Charlton, and it just makes it a real battle on Sunday, which thankfully we don't need to worry about.
Yeah, absolutely, Mark. Out of the other teams in the playoffs, the teams that could get into the playoffs as well, from a Lincoln perspective, who would you rather face? A, in the semi-final, and B, hopefully in the final.
Oh dear. I mean, you want to really avoid Sunderland, wouldn't you? Really, until the final potentially, just because of the nature of the games we've had against them have been quite tough. Portsmouth, you fancy Lincoln to beat Portsmouth over 2 legs, as I would Blackpool, really. I think Sunderland's the one team out of them, what you're looking at, 5, that I would want to avoid really until the final if we could. But you've got to beat who's in front of you, haven't you? So it's near there. So the interesting thing for me is the home. Is the home game going to be first, or is the home game going to be second leg? So that's the bit that, and depending on what the results are tonight, as to what Michael might do on Saturday in terms of his team selection. I'm not saying that Lincoln won't try and win every single game, but I just think there may be some kind of tactical awareness going on in terms of what might happen, because certainly Lincoln's away form is much better than the home form. So, but at the end of the day, does it really matter? Probably not. It's football, isn't it? As we can see on Saturday, anything can happen at any point. So I think Lincoln will get to the final. Then who knows? Who knows?
Well, that's it, Gary. I mean, there are just so many permutations at this stage. From a neutral's perspective, I guess it has been quite an incredible League One season, really, certainly on paper. I guess it's a case of not trying to overthink it, even though we are talking about it.
Yeah, look, as fans and pundits, you've got to overthink it. That's kind of what we do. If we didn't, we wouldn't be doing the people who watch and listen to service. It's been a tremendous season, and I think anybody would have taken the position that we're in now at the beginning of the campaign. I actually disagree with Mark. I'd really like to take Sunderland over the 2 legs. I think their form has been appalling of late. They've picked up the odd win here and there, and obviously I think they've only got 1 fit centre back, potentially not even 1, and Bailey Wright. But I think they've got 5 injured as well. I think they've just peaked early. And the one team I would want to avoid are Portsmouth, because I don't like narrative around games. I don't like ones that can be built up. Cowley versus Appleton, things like that. That's the game that you want to avoid at all stages. So for me, I'll take Portsmouth in the semi-finals, let Blackpool deal with Sunderland in the semi-finals, let Blackpool deal with Pompey. And Blackpool haven't beaten us this season. So there you go. Bob's your uncle. Nottingham Forest, here we come.
Simple as that. Score predictions tonight, Mark. I'll start with you.
I'm going to go for a 2-1 Lincoln win. I think Charlton will come out the blocks, but I think Lincoln will catch them on the counter-attack.
And Gary?
I think Lincoln will probably catch them on the counter-attack as well. I think it'll be a really open game. I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw.
Interesting stuff. Guys, thank you very much for your time. Much appreciated.
Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers, mate.
Right, I'm slightly getting the hang of this directing, like it's just as well as getting towards the end of the season, is it? Thanks very much for joining us on tonight's Matchday Live. Myself, Gary Hutchinson, and Mark Home will be joining us at the somewhat earlier time of 10:30 on Sunday, when the Imps take part in their final League One match of the season. They'll be hosting Wimbledon. In the meantime, do enjoy tonight's game. Fingers crossed the Imps can get all 3 points at the Valley. Do enjoy the game. Bye for now.